Question number 4th A. Question number 4th A. Now what this question says, attitude is an important component that goes as input in the development of human. How to build a suitable attitude needed for a public servant. Attitude is an important component that goes as input in the development of human being. How to build a suitable attitude needed for public servant. Now see this particular. When we talk about attitude, what is an attitude? Attitude can simply be explained as a predisposition to act in a particular manner towards an attitude object. Now, this is an attitude object. For example, a pen. When I see this pen, this is an attitude object. How I react or how I respond to it. I can respond with a favorableness. I can respond. I can resist this particular thing. I might have a kind of a neutral response. So attitudes, it simply is predisposition to act towards a particular attitude object. Now it is said that attitude is very important component that goes as input in the development of human beings. Now what human beings are? They are just the outcome of their attitude. Now different attitudes define the different personalities. What is my attitude towards different social phenomena will define my personality. What is my attitude towards women? What is my attitude towards the notion of caste? What is my attitude towards the marginalized sections? What is the attitude towards different religion? It will define my personality. So attitude is an important component that goes as input into the development of human being. Favorable attitudes will make a favorable personality. How to build a suitable attitude needed for public servant? Your question actually starts from here. How to build a suitable attitude needed for public servant? Now see this particular thing, that the attitude will define what is desirable for you. Attitude will define what is desirable for you. And what is desirable will be reflected in your choice. And your choice will transform into your behaviors. If your action, now this behavior, your action is judged onto the ethicality. Your action will be judged onto the standards of ethicality. If your action needs to be good, we need to develop a favorable attitude in you, a positive attitude. The man is the sum total of his attitudes. The civil servants, if we need to derive a favorable behavior out of them, if from the civil servants we need to derive something congenial, we need to build in attitudes. Now, how the attitudes can be developed into the public servants? In them, the attitudes could be developed by certain ways. Number one, what we can do through the positive socialization. Through the positive socialization, the favorable attitudes can be built in the civil servants during their tender age. Through the positive socialization. Fine. Now, socialization is a complex process by which a person learns how to behave in a society. So, through the process of positive socialization, in the tender age, the people can be taught the desirable attitudes which will be helping them in their careers laterwards. In this positive socialization, the family plays an important role. The institutions, educational institutions, other institutions, they play an important role. Entire society plays an important role. So number one, the socialization of every kid needs to be good so that laterwards they can harbor the positive attitudes, so that laterwards when they become a public servant, civil servant, they can be driven with these positive attitudes. Second, now here we will be coming on some more core kind of points. See, when you talk about attitude, attitude is actually made up of three components: cognitive, affective, and behavioral. Cognitive means what is the knowledge that you are having about the attitude object. Affective, the emotions associated with an attitude object. And behavioral, how you actually behave. So when we talk about cognitive, it is provided that actually in the civil servant, what is to be done? In the civil servants, number one, they are needed to be given the positive idea. They are to be given the positive ideas. They are to be given such kind of knowledge which actually makes them more just, which makes them more rule bound. So during the training period, after the time that they have inducted a particular type of knowledge, particular type of ideas, particular type of cognition should be provided to them. Second is affective. A particular a particular type of emotional experience, a particular type of emotional experience is needed to be inculcated into them. Emotional receptivity, emotional receptivity is needed to be inculcated into them, because if emotional receptivity will be inculcated into them, they can understand the positive emotions. Okay, and when the positive attitudes are there with the attitude object, if positive emotions are associated, okay, a particular type of attitude can be framed. So emotional receptivity needs to be taught to the civil servants during the period of their training, and if emotional receptivity is given, then the attitudes can be developed. Then behavioral. During their training period, during their training period, they are needed to be given, during the training period, they are needed to be given the avenues for practicing the new behaviors that have been taught to them. More you will learn a behavior, if I teach you a good behavior and if I give you the avenue to practice this good behavior, your behavior will become more strong. So during the training period of the civil servants, they are needed to be given the right kind of idea so that right attitudes can be made. They need to be given an emotional receptivity so that they can associate the desirable emotions with the desirable attitudes, and they need to be given the avenues for right behavior so that they can practice these particular attitudes also. Clear? And into this particular manner, the suitable attitudes into the civil servants can be made. So this is in total 1 point. Right? 3 sub points were there. After that, the third is by providing them a positive nudge. Third is by providing them the positive nudge. Positive nudge. Is it clear? Now, providing them a positive nudge is that providing them such kind of reinforcement again and again that this is to be done, this is to be done, this is desirable. Positive nudge is to be provided. Then, fourthly, by exploring the avenues of modeling, by exploring the avenues of modeling. So we model the people and then we learn the attitudes which those people had. Now, into this particular capacity, see, one reference you can quote. New Education Policy 2020 actually. New Education Policy 2020. Fine. It came out with the National Teachers Resource Repository. National Teachers Resource Repository. Now, what is this National Teachers Resource Repository? In this, the experience of the different teachers will be put. Fine, the values that the different teachers have adhered to, they will be put. The good case studies where the teachers have behaved in a good manner, they will be, so that the new teachers can learn from that, so that the budding teachers can learn from that. Fine, from that repository. Into the same way, a repository of desirable attitudes for the civil servant can also, and by that repository, the desirable attitudes civil servants can learn through the modeling effect. So this modeling effect is there into the attitude formation, that our we look toward to that one particular role model, we try to be like that. So through the modeling effect, there we can create a repository of desirable attitudes of some respectable civil servants, and by that the civil servants can also be inculcated with such kind of attitudes. Fine. So this is all about this particular question. Okay, I hope that you have understood it. Okay. Meanwhile, everything is going good. Yes, students, is everything going good meanwhile? Okay, are you able to understand the things that we are discussing? Is there any doubt? Is there any problem? Okay, you can understand. I hope that you are getting some inputs here which you can use in your answers as well. Okay. Now, next question. That is the question number 4th B. So the question says, in case of crisis of conscience, does emotional intelligence help to overcome the same without compromising the ethical and moral stand that you are likely to follow? Critically examine. The question is asking you that when the crisis of conscience will happen, first of all, what is the crisis of conscience? Crisis of conscience is a situation when you are not able to decide that what should be done in a moral situation. In a moral situation, say two choices are there, A and B, and you are not able to decide which one is to be taken. Should you do this or should you do this? So this is the crisis of conscience that happens. Your conscience is not very much clear. There we call your conscience, your voice of conscience, as a moral compass. It guides you what is to be done and what is not to be done. So inner voice or the voice of conscience is called as moral compass, but sometimes this moral compass will not be able to show you the way. So what will happen? A crisis of conscience will happen. You are not able to decide क्या करना है. Now, in case of such crisis of conscience, emotional intelligence can help to overcome the same without compromising the ethical and moral stand that you are likely to follow critically examine. So, if you have emotional intelligence, you can resolve this crisis of conscience. And without compromising on ethical and moral standards, you can take decision. In a nutshell, what the question is asking, in simple words, the question is asking that how the emotional intelligence can help you in resolving the crisis of conscience and how you can take the ethical decisions if you are emotionally intelligent person. But the word is critically examined. So on flip side also, you can give one or two arguments that sometimes just emotional intelligence is not important. Sometimes something more than emotional intelligence is also needed. So because the critical examination is being asked here, so this different side of the spectrum also you need to show. Now let's see this particular thing. When we talk about emotional intelligence, how it will help. Point number one. Basically, what happens when there is a crisis of conscience? When the crisis of conscience is there, clear, and we are not able to objectively decide, okay, this is to be done or this is to be done. Is it clear? What happens many times? We behave as per our impulses. Many times we get confused between the impulses and voice of conscience. Is it clear? No, basically, okay, I will give you one example. Ravan abducted the Sita. When Ravan abducted the Sita, Ravan took a decision to abduct the Sita. Okay. At that point of a time, this thing was done onto the basis of a loose impulse of the Ravan. And when the Ravan behaved onto this impulse, he did something unethical. He did something. So the Ravan's abduction of Sita was immoral. Why? Because Ravan acted onto the impulse. But Ravan might have thought that, okay, this thing that, okay, I should abduct the Sita, it is a voice of conscience which is telling him to do this thing. But no, it was not voice of conscience, it was an impulse. So many times when the crisis of conscience is there, our loose impulses also, our vested interest also guide us that ye kar lete hain. Our prejudices also guide us to do this. So into such kind of a matters, we need to make sure that we are not driven by our impulses. And how to determine that we are not driven as per our impulses, but we stay true to our voice of conscience. This particular thing will only be possible when you have a descriptive awareness of your emotions. If you know what emotional intelligence is, by the way, emotional intelligence pertains to three things. Number one, perception, interpretation, and understanding of your own emotions. Perception, interpretation, and understanding of your own emotions, and understanding of others' emotion. Now, when I know my all the emotions very objectively, obviously I can see that, okay, which are the higher order emotions, which are the impulses, fine, and I will not be driven by the loose impulses. Secondly, how it can help. See this particular thing. The Bhagavad Gita had divided the emotions as the higher order emotions and the lower order emotions. Higher order emotions and the lower order emotions. Now, when the battle of Kurukshetra was going on, at that point of time, the battle of Kurukshetra, the Arjun, in the battle of Kurukshetra, the Arjun, he was experiencing certain emotions. Before fighting, he said that, how the history will remember me if I will kill my brothers and my uncles. There were certain emotions that were coming. Now, the Lord Krishna taught him that the emotions that now you are adhering to, these are the lower order emotions. What is the higher order emotions? You need to experience the emotion of, you needed to experience certain kind of emotions which are associated with your duty. You are a warrior, and in your duty, certain, if you will follow your duty, certain higher order emotions will be reciprocated. Fine. So we always need to understand the lower order undesirable emotion and higher order desirable emotions. Now, the person, if he is having emotional intelligence, he can understand these desirable higher order emotions, can act as per these kind of emotions. Is it clear? And therefore, in the situation of crisis of conscience, he will be ethical. Right? Then third, a person. Third, third point. A person who is emotionally intelligent. A person who is emotionally intelligent, he will be able to understand, he will be able to he will be able to have the desirable social skills. The person having high emotional intelligence, he will be able to understand the emotions pertaining to different capacities, private capacities, public capacities. A person having emotional intelligence, he can do the rightful evaluation of his own behavior as well as the others' behavior. Clear? And by all these particular factors, he can he can forecast that what is the most desirable thing to be done. He can forecast what is the most desirable thing to be. So, into this particular way, the emotional intelligence can help you out. Fine. Now, there is one more side of the question, that is critically examine. However, certain times, just the emotional intelligence will not be helpful. You need to have the good aptitude also. Just the emotional intelligence will not help. You need to have good aptitude also. You need to have good cognitive sharpness also. You need to have, secondly, the creativity also. You need to have the creativity also. So apart from emotional intelligence, yes, it will help you, but you need to have aptitude. You need to have the creativity also. Fine. And third, you need to have you need to have the courage also. Sometimes when a crisis of conscience is there, uncharted paths, uncharted ways are to be taken. So there, the courage also needs to be there to take such unexplored paths. So into this particular way, we can resolve this particular question. Right? Now moving to the next question, that is the question number 5a. Now what this question says, the question is talking about the refugee crisis. Fine. Refugees, the question says this, that refugees should not be turned back. Refugees should not be turned back to the country where they would face persecution or human rights violation. Examine the statement with reference to the ethical dimensions being violated by the nation claiming to be democratic with an open society. Now we see this particular thing, that the refugee crisis, again it has become important. Number one, in 2015, it was very important topic because of the refugee crisis going on to the going around the Mediterranean. Now, the refugee crisis that have been exacerbated, clear, because of the occurrences in the Myanmar. Again, this particular thing has become very much important. Is it clear? Now, many times we have found this particular thing, that the countries, when the matters of refugee is there, the countries, they become very self-centered, and they claim themselves to be democratic onto the face. They claim themselves to be democratic onto the face, but then refugees are being turned back. So what the question is, ethical dimensions that are being violated by the nations. Ethical dimensions that are being violated by the nations which are claiming to be democratic and which claim them to be an open society. So what is happening here? Let's see this thing. Okay. So just I want to, you can start this particular quote. See, if you have read this year's economic survey, this year's economic survey opened up with a statement of Mahabharat, a quote of Mahabharat. What the quote was? Quote was, आपदी प्राण रक्षा ही धर्मस्य प्रथमांडुकर. आपदी प्राण रक्षा ही धर्मस्य प्रथमांडुकर. What this quote means? This quote means saving a life that is in jeopardy is the origin of dharma. Saving a life that is in jeopardy is the origin of dharma. The moment where you have taken an effort and had saved the life, the dharma originates from that particular point. Is it clear? Into this capacity, in this capacity, when we talk about the Indian philosophies, we have the example of King Shibi. Is that clear? Now, the king Shibi, when he was sitting in his court, and suddenly a bird came, and that bird came and sat onto the lap of King Shibi. King Shibi was tendering that particular bird. Suddenly, a predator bird came, and he said that I want to eat that bird. King Shibi said that okay, I'll not give you the bird. You can take my own flesh and can eat it. So, India has been the land of King Shibi, where we have protected the other people. We have always saved the life that is in jeopardy, and from here the dharma starts. In this particular manner, the treatment of refugee, in this particular manner, the treatment of refugee by the different societies calls for the ethical scrutiny of those countries. Clear? Now, understand this particular thing. What are the ethical principles that are being violated here? The ethical principles that are being violated here. Number one. Now, the country where the countries where the refugees are being turned back, it defeats the idea of Vasudeva Kutumbakam. Vasudev Kutumbukam. Now, the idea of a cosmopolitanism, which was very strongly advocated by the Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore very strongly advocated the cosmopolitanism. He said that the world is a global village. And the world being a global village, we are all nothing but an extended family. Into this capacity, when the refugees are coming and they are being turned back to the country where they would face persecution, you are discriminating them like us versus them. You are discriminating them like us versus them. What it is the violation of the notion of world as a global family, world as a global village. It is a violation of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which should be adhered to. We should be moved with the idea of cosmopolitanism, where everybody needs to be seen as the member of one territory. Clear? So, us versus them, discriminatory attitude comes here. Secondly, the country which is turning back such refugees, it shows a national apathy. What is apathy? Apathy, it is an indifference. You are not moved by the pain of another person. You are not moved by the suffering of another person. So it shows the national apathy. Shows the national. What ethical dimension is being violated? Ethical dimension is being violated. That country needs to be compassionate. You needs to be empathetic. Now, not here you are showing apathy, which is opposite of empathy and compassion. So national apathy is being demonstrated. Right. Thirdly, it is the degradation of humanism. It is the degradation of humanism, degradation of categorical imperative given by the Kant. What Immanuel Kant believed? Immanuel Kant said that the humans in themselves, they are the end. Humans in themselves, they are the end. There can never be the categorization of the humans. Humans categorization cannot be done. So Kant's categorical imperative called for non-categorization of humans. Now what you have done, you have sent the refugees back to their country from where they came and where they'll face the persecution. Why? Because you believed that they don't belong to your country. So what you have done, the categorization of the humans you have done. Clear? So this particular thing is an ethical violation of the categorical imperative given by Kant. Categorical imperative given by Kant. Then the next thing that is there, basically the right of life and right to dignity. Now, the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights 1948 had provided this particular thing, that right to life is one of the most important right that is to be respected, and it cannot be violated in any circumstances, and it will be highly unethical for a country to not to reciprocate to the right to life. It will be highly immoral for a country to not to adhere to the right of life. So this right to life and right of dignity is being violated when the people are being sent back. Now, to give little bit of a more depth to this particular answer, after giving the violation of these ethical dimensions, we can also provide that why the countries are sending them. Now, the countries who are sending them, they also have one particular logic. And here comes the lifeboat ethics. Here comes the lifeboat ethics. Excuse me. Lifeboat ethics. What is lifeboat ethics? Now see, you might have seen a lifeboat. On lifeboat, there are a very less number of resources that are there in terms of food, in terms of medical aid. Very less resources are there on a lifeboat. You cannot accommodate endless people onto the lifeboat, because if that will be the case, what will happen at the end of the day? That lifeboat will get it will sink. So, as per the principle of lifeboat ethics, the countries say that okay, we don't have the endless capacity that we can accommodate. We have to send. If we'll not send them, our own citizens will suffer. So, countries, however, citing the lifeboat ethics, they send these people back, but it is not ethical. It is not just. The world should come together and they should take a collective responsibility. Everybody, every country, according to their capacity, needs to take this particular responsibility and need to treat the refugees into a just and ethical manner. So these are certain points that you can point to in your answer. Now, moving to the next question. Okay, is everything going on good? Okay, this particular question, you understood it? Some points you want me to elaborate again? You want me to repeat it again? Please tell me. Is it good? Okay, mhm. See, very good. The last point that I said, lifeboat ethics and taking collective responsibility, it is actually a conclusion only. How to make a conclusion? The countries, they are justified when they say that into the name of national interest, we need to send them back. The countries, they are giving the justification of lifeboat ethics. They say that we cannot accommodate everybody. National ethics are there. Fine. But at the same time, beyond the national importance, the saving of a human life, fine, it is also there. What we need to do? Neither we will absolutely be sending them back, nor obviously we can keep them here. So therefore, here comes a need of a collective effort or a new framework which is to be designed. And under this new framework, rather than sending them into the country where they can face persecution, rather than sending them to the country where they can face the persecution, what could be done? They could be accommodated in some other place. And here, different, all the countries should come together. They should open up their respective quotas where the refugees can be accommodated. ठीक है, 100 refugees हैं, एक country 100 को नहीं रख सकती है, but these hundreds cannot be sent back. So we need to come together as a and we need to design such kind of a framework. Is this thing now clear? Yes. See, sending them will never be an option. Sending them is not an option. Fine. However, keeping them cannot be an option. Then the new frameworks need can come here. You can put it in that this way. Fine. हाँ देखो, इतना स्कोप आपके पास में होगा नहीं. Just you can give one particular concluding remark into this particular manner, that on one hand lifeboat ethics is there which advocate sending them back, but that cannot be a way. We need to come out with a collective framework. This only, because you will not be having that much scope to write it when the real exam will be there, na? So this is the optimum way. Okay, fine. Okay, any other doubt? If it is there, you can ask these things. And now we'll move to the next question. That is the question number uh, 5th B. Question number 5th B. Should impartiality and being non-partisan be considered indispensable qualities to make a successful civil servant? Okay, impartiality and non-partisanship, should they be indispensable qualities to make a successful civil servant? Yes, discuss with illustration. Yes, the impartiality and non-partisanship needs to be the indispensable qualities. Now, what you can do? First, we can define the impartiality. We can define the non-partisanship, and then we can give certain illustrations that why they are indispensable. So, giving this illustration is the justification that okay, why they are indispensable. So, it is some sort of arguments fine, where you are telling by the different perspectives that why it is indispensable. So number one, when we talk about the impartiality, impartiality means to maintain a sense, it means to maintain an outlook where no no person will be given a favorable treatment, no person will be given an added advantage, and at the same time nobody will be given an additional liability, giving a same level playing field to everybody. It is the hallmark of impartiality. Impartiality means to give the same level playing, to give the same opportunities and imposing the same liabilities on the different parties or the different people. That is impartiality. Same, giving them same opportunities of representation and giving them the same duties, putting them on same obligations. Right? With that, the next comes is the non-partisanship. See, non-partisanship is different from the impartiality. Non-partisanship means that you will not be associated with any political party, you will not be associated with any political ideology, you will not be associated with any political cult, any political leader, you will not be associated. It means, see this thing, you are permanent executive, you are working with the political executive. Though you are working all the time with the political executive, but you yourself will not be influenced by such political executive, political leaders. So it is like this, that as a lotus is there in the muddy water, though it is blooming there into the muddy water, but it is not touched with the mud. In the same way, अब आप ये देखो एग्जाम्पल देना मत, आपको समझाने के लिए बता रहा हूँ. ऐसा नहीं बोलेंगे कि that politics it is that, no, I just I am explaining you. So as that is the conjecture that we have used, into the same way, though you are working under the politicians, but you should not get influenced with them. This is the value of non-partisanship. Now both of these values are indispensable. Both of these values are indispensable. How? We will take first value, and we will provide certain justifications, and then we'll take another value, and then we'll again provide another justification. So number one, we can pick up with the impartiality. So number one, basically the impartiality is needed so that the constitutional morality can be adhered to. Constitutional values, constitutional spirit can be adhered to. What is the constitutional spirit? What the preamble talks about? Preamble talks about the justice. What the fundamental rights talks about? Fundamental rights talks about the equality. Clear? What the entire spirit of the constitution? It is based on to the premise of the justice. So therefore, in order to give the justice, in order to give the equality, in order to give the fair treatment, in order to preserve the rule of law, impartiality is needed. Because if impartiality is not there, the constitutional morality cannot be there. Second, basically the impartiality is needed to build the social capital. Dekho, the more the social capital will be there for a state, the more the state is trusted, the social capital, and in fact, social trust. To build the social capital and social trust. The social capital is the wealth of your relationships. Social trust is the trust that you enjoy into the society. More the social trust and social capital will be there, more the citizens will be paying the allegiance. When you trust the state, when you believe within the state, you adhere to whatever the state asks. Now, to build the social capital and social trust, the bureaucrats need to be impartial. Because if there will be nepotism, if there will be favoritism, you will never be trusting the state. Social capital and trust will be built if the impartiality is. Thirdly, to resolve the conflicts and crises in an amicable manner, the impartiality needs to be there. In events of riots, in events of some internal disturbances, for peaceful resolution, the civil servants need to be looked as being impartial. Otherwise, they will not be trusted into the conciliation. They will not be trusted in mediation. They will not be trusted in resolution. So, in the dispensation of the resolution disputes, they need to be seen as impartial. Being impartial will avoid the nepotism, favoritism, preferential treatment. And when the nepotism, favoritism, preferential treatment will be avoided, what will happen? The rule of merit, or simply the meritocracy will come. The preferential treatment will be fine. So in this particular manner, the impartiality will be an indispensable quality. Then secondly, non-partisanship. Non-partisanship as an indispensable quality. Yes. Why? Number one, we find this particular thing that in India, impartisanship might bring the committed bureaucracy. The partisanship in India, the partisanship might bring a committed bureaucracy. Now, what is the idea of committed bureaucracy? In USSR, the idea of committed bureaucracy has been favored. Here, during the 1970s, also the idea of committed bureaucracy was favored. Will not take the name of one political leader. Committed bureaucracy means that whatever the political leaders believe in, same thing needed to be believed by the civil servants also, bureaucrats also. This is the idea of committed bureaucracy. But if the bureaucrats will become committed, to the political people, political parties, what will happen? They will not be able to ensure the rule of law. They will not be able to ensure the rule of law. They cannot ensure that they cannot become the counterbalance. So if non-partisanship will not be there, we will have committed bureaucracy. If non-partisanship will not be there, we will have the committed bureaucracy, and this committed bureaucracy cannot ensure that. Fine, they will just be towing the line of the government. Today, what happens? If the bureaucrats also will toe the line of the government, populistic policies will be made. Which will violate the principle of efficiency and effectiveness. And by that particular thing, at the end of the day, justice will not come. So the committed bureaucracy will be the result if non-partisanship be followed. Second thing, if non-partisanship will not be there, then the personal integrity of the civil servants will also impacted. See this thing. We know this particular thing that the permanent executive and political executive, they are different. Political executive will be changed after every 5 years, but the permanent executive will serve the different governments that will be coming and going. Now, if non-partisanship is not there, it means that today XYZ party is ruling. You will be influenced by this XYZ party. Tomorrow, let's say the ABC party came. Then if non-partisanship is not there, you will influenced by this ABC party. Every day you are changing your standards. Every day you are changing your ideology. Every day you are changing your political allegiance. Is it clear? Now this shows that your personal integrity. And if you don't change, then you might not be able to give the complete, devotion. You will not be able to give the complete dedication to your job, because अगर government change हो गई, but still पुरानी government से आप attached हो, you cannot give the complete justice, complete devotion to your job. Is it clear? So therefore, the non-partisanship is very much important. Thirdly, non-partisanship is very much important to avoid the holy nexus between the politicians and the public officials. So this unholy nexus of politicians and public officials, it is leading to a lot of corruption. It is leading to such many problems. So to avoid this unholy nexus, also the non-partisanship is needed to be respected. So therefore, both of these qualities are very much indispensable for the civil servants. Fine. That is all about this particular question. Is this thing clear to everyone? Right. Now, let's move to the next question. Question number 6A. An independent and empowered social audit mechanism is an absolute must in every sphere of public service, including the judiciary, to ensure performance, accountability, and ethical conduct. Now, social audit. The second ARC 10th report has provided that the social audit can be one of the most powerful tool to remove the accountability deficit as well as to remove the democracy deficit. So democracy deficit and accountability deficit that is there, to remove it, the social audit could be a very powerful tool. What do we mean by social audit? giving the power in the hand of the citizen that they can investigate the functioning of the different wings of the state. They can see the working of the different projects. They can see the working of the different government schemes and initiatives, and can ask the accountability of the different stakeholders, public servants, public officials. Social audit, giving them the avenues that they can audit the ongoing schemes, ongoing projects, the functioning. This social audit is very much important in every. Now they say that abhi dekho, social audit, for example, in MG Narega, there is a social audit, a written social audit happens there in MG Narega, but not in some few specific spheres. Every sphere social audit is very much important, including into the judiciary. Now, why social audit is important? Certain reasons could be given here. Reason number one into this particular direction that you can give. Reason number one into this particular direction that you can give is this. See, when we talk about the relation between the citizen and the state, the relation between the citizen and state is the relation between the citizen and the state. It is guided under the social contract. It is guided under the social contract. Now, what happens as per the social contract? As per the social contract, it is believed that there is a binary of relation. On one hand, there is a citizen, on another hand, there is a state. Now, this binary of relation works into this particular manner that the citizen will compromise on their absolute liberties, freedom. They will surrender their absolute freedom into the favor of a state, and state in turn will make the laws and will give the welfare to the citizen. However, if whether the state is fulfilling their part of contract or not, for this particular thing, the citizens should have some avenue. They should have some tool, and here the social audit will help. Social audit will ensure that the social contract is being. So, what will happen if the accountability can be checked? If the social contract can be implemented fully, what can happen? We can see that whether they are performing better or not. We can bring the accountability through the social audit. We can see whether ethically they are behaving or not. Fine. Secondly, the Lord Acton provides power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, the state, including the judiciary, they have so much of power, and to check that abuse of power is not there, the abuse of power is not there, some avenue into the form of social audit should be given to the citizens, so that they can breach that adventurism is not being taken up. Right? Thirdly, particularly when we talk about the judiciary has often been charged with the nepotism, with the favoritism. We find this particular thing that when the National Judicial Appointments Commission came, the NJC was held as unconstitutional by the judiciary. The moment a kind of an accountability in the appointments was being brought, it was held as unconstitutional, and the charge of nepotism, favoritism, it is there onto the judiciary, and such kind of charge cannot be afforded onto the institution of judiciary, which in itself has been given a charge to see the functioning of other parts of the state, particularly the executive and legislature. So, in such high regard, the judiciary is to be kept that there even should not be a grain of perception that such kind of unethical thing is going on, and giving the social audit into the hand of people. And if judiciary is able to perform onto that particular thing, then further reinforcement into the confidence, further reinforcement of confidence into the judiciary there. So, by all these particular things, we see that the social audit is a very powerful tool, and it will enhance the performance because the accountability will be restored. Clear? As accountability in itself will be restored, such accountability, the checking of such accountability will make sure that the abuse is not there. It will make sure that the adventurism is not there, and ethical conduct will also be adhered, because when the social audit is there, you can you can seek the answerability whenever the ethic principles of ethical values have been there, when the virtues have not been adhered to. Okay? So automatically it will bring it. Right? This is about this particular question. Is that clear for it? Now, one particular thing you need to keep it in mind, that when you are talking on to this particular point of judiciary, you need to be very much diplomatic here. You need to be very much diplomatic here. Neither you should leave it unaddressed, nor you should become too critical. You need to be a little bit diplomatic in this point. So that is about it. Now moving to the next and the final part of our uh, question. Question 6b. Integrity is a value that empowers the human being. Justify with a suitable illustration. Integrity is a value that empowers the human being. Now, already we have seen what do we mean by integrity in question number 1 as well as question number 1b. Now, integrity empowers the human being. Fine. Integrity empowers the human being. Fine. Justify with suitable illustrations. Now, it has been provided that the integrity, what happens? Integrity, the moment a person has inculcated the integrity, the moment the person has inculcated the highest moral uprightness, clear, the integrity gives a self-confidence. Clear? Integrity gives you a sense of empowerment. How? Because integrity gives you a strong moral uprightness and it gives you a sense of purpose. Integrity gives you a sense of purpose. Integrity gives you a self-confidence that you had never done anything wrong. Integrity gives you the contentment. Integrity gives you contentment. Clear? The Socrates, Plato, he said this particular thing, that all the gold and all the glory is not even equivalent to give away on your virtues. And when we talk about integrity, integrity happens to be a virtue. According to the Plato, even if you get the world's entire gold and glory, then also you should not give away onto the integrity. Why? Because integrity in itself is the foundation of the moral wealth. Integrity in itself is the foundation of the moral wealth. Is it clear? Or integrity in itself is an end. Integrity in itself is an end. So for by this particular thing, the integrity in itself is a value that empowers the human being. When you have self-confidence, when you have the sense of purpose, when you have the contentment, when you have the moral wealth, when you have your end of your life, when you are living with the end of your, when you are living in sync with the end of your life, what happens? You feel empowered. So integrity in itself is the most cherished. Integrity in itself is the most desirable. Right? So this is about this part. So guys, with this we come to an end to our today's discussion. As we said that today we will be seeing majorly the theory part that is there. Now, the purpose of this particular discussion was such that you should not only see these questions a kind of an approach, but you should also learn how to answer them, you should learn, okay, a very important fodder and some content also. So I hope that you have understood it and you have inculcated the things that we have learned here. Okay, meanwhile, if there's any doubt, yes. Illustrate, see, basically when they are talking about illustrate, necessarily it is not needed कि आपको कुछ आपको कंटेम्प्रेरी टाइम्स के अंदर में एग्जांपल देना. इलस्ट्रेट इज दैट बाय द वे ऑफ द डिफरेंट डिफरेंट आर्ग्यूमेंट्स यू नीड टू प्रेजेंट द जस्टिफिकेशन. Fine. So by the way of different arguments, you need to provide the justification. Okay, am I audible to you? Okay, okay, fine. Yes, guys, any other doubt? No, no. See, civil servant is actually a very big umbrella term. Is that clear? Civil servants, you can give the example, but examples of the people who are associated with the administration. अगर आप बोल रहे हो कि आईएएस का एग्जांपल, आईपीएस का एग्जांपल देना नहीं, ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है. एनी एग्जांपल्स हु आर वर्किंग इनटू द लाइन ऑफ द पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, यू कैन गिव इट. Is it clear? Okay. Any other doubt here? Okay. Now, if you see this question of integrity, it is more of an abstract question. Clear? Here, if you want, earlier integrity ke examples we have seen. For example, the example of Usagayam, example of Ashok Khemka we have seen, example of S. Manjunath is there, on whose name the Manjunath Integrity Awards are there. So Manjunath's example, you can give Mr. Satyendra Dubey's example you can give. So these are all the examples. Fine. Integrity के perfect examples अगर दोबारा बताते हो, I can repeat. Satyendra Dubey, fine. Manjunath, is it clear? Usagayam, Ashok Khemka, you can give them these examples. You can give the example of Metroman E. Sridharan, who had upheld their integrity. Is it clear? When we talk about them, even the S. Manjunath and Satyendra Dubey, Manjunath working with IOCL, Satyendra Dubey working with the God Little project. They did not even bothered for their life. They compromised their life, but they kept the integrity intact. Satyendra Dubey and Manjunath. Right? So these examples, if you want, you can give here. Okay. Is this thing clear to you? Is this clear? Fine. So guys, that is all about it. And we come to an end to this discussion. I hope that you have understood it. So that is all from my side. Thank you so much.